Hello, you're watching Race for the White House with me, Ishita Mitra. This is a show where we get you the latest from America's political landscape. On today's show, we'll tell you how expensive it is to become the President of the United States. Also on the show, we'll tell you whether pop star Taylor Swift will endorse Kamala Harris or not. All of this and much more, so let's get started. As the race for the White House intensifies with each passing day, one of the most crucial yet underrated factor has come into focus: the amount of money involved in the election process. This, as in American politics, the candidate who raises the most money nearly always wins. So what's the answer? Well, the finances involved in electing the leader of the free world might leave you startled. You see, the financial aspect of the US presidential elections has expanded over years to become one of the most expensive exercises in the world. And let me tell you, votes aren't cheap in the US. Looking at the spending trajectory, this year's election will surpass last year's record expenditure of about $14 billion. And even though federal laws do set limits on funding for both presidential campaigns and for politicians running for Congress, the reality is quite different. And as a result, money flows in from multiple directions. And this is what makes US political funding and financial system quite complex to understand. So let's take a look at it. Now, an individual can only donate about $3,300 to a presidential candidate under the federal law. And the major campaign funds are raised from political action committees, also known as PACs and super PACs. Now, super PACs, which came into operation after the Supreme Court ruling in 2010, have become central to the current US election process. Why? Because these entities can take any amount of money from individuals, corporations, and unions, and they can spend any amount of money on campaign-related activities. But there's a condition here. Now, they do not consult directly with the candidates they are supporting, and this results in huge rise in outside spending, which is money that is spent on elections but not directly on the candidates. So PACs can spend unlimited amount of money on political advertising as long as it's not directly linked to a candidate. Let me give you an example. Now, there is a limit to how many Vote Harris ads it can buy, but there's no limit on Vote for Fair Abortion Laws ads. So this means the largest expenditure is usually on media and advertising. If you look at the total money being converted into cost per vote, it is an expensive affair. To calculate cost per winning vote, we just have to divide the whole amount spent by the candidate with the total number of votes they receive. So we have pulled a few numbers from 1992 to 2016. Obama surely spent the most with about $13 per vote in 2008, while Trump spent about $5.8 in 2016, and Clinton had the lowest per vote cost at about $4.3 in 1996. If we look at the broader picture, some countries like France and Canada have set limits on how much politicians can spend on their campaigns. On the other hand, parliamentary polls in India are one of the most expensive elections in the world. The ruling party BJP spent about $18 per vote in 2019. Now, coming back to US, the question is, if candidates simply spend more money, will they get more votes? Well, that is not necessary. The relationship between fundraising and victory is quite complicated. While there is a strong relationship between spending and success, it's a misconception to think that money entirely causes the success. As we inch closer to the election day, the political attacks are becoming more and more personal. A recent example of this was witnessed at the DNC, a tearful, unscripted moment between Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz and his 17-year-old son Gus at the Democratic National Convention had unleashed a flood of praise and admiration, but it also prompted ugly online bullying. Now, Gus Walz, who has a non-verbal learning disorder as well as learning disorder, watched excitedly from the front row and sobbed openly as his father accepted the VP nomination. Walz followed up by expressing his love for his family from the stage, saying, "Hope, Gus and Gwen, you're my entire world and I love you." Now, this touching moment between father and son was captured on camera and it went viral on social media. It was largely received affectionately, but the heartwarming moment also triggered a wave of ugly comments on social media by Republican supporters. For instance, conservative commentator Ann Coulter mocked Walz's son on social media over a now-deleted post. She shared a link to the post and describing the moment as "talk about weird." The backlash against Coulter was swift and ferocious. Now, the founder of Moms Demand Action Group, Shannon Watts, defended Gus in a tweet. Even a fellow Republican, Mark Molinaro, blasted her on microblogging site X. For more on this, we are now being joined by our White House correspondent, Rohit Sharma. Could you please elaborate on what has been the reaction on this so far?
Well, look, if you look at the recent posts on social media and for both the campaigns, you can't just blame one campaign or the other. It's getting a little nastier. It is definitely getting a little more out of hand, especially when it's from the Republican side. We saw what happened after Tim Walz accepted a nomination for vice president. His son was called out with different names by conservative commentators and surrogates for Trump on social media, and Coulter stating something about Gus Walz and then retracting her statement. I mean, look, we've always seen this happening. I mean, even Democrats are to be blamed. They went overboard with the couch thing with JD Vance. They went overboard with calling all Republicans weird, and it's a reminder of the times that we live in. Most people think and form their opinion from what's going on social media. So the fact of the matter is that we probably see a lot of this going forward. And look, mudslinging, calling out things on policies and proposals is all fine, but when it does get personal, I think that's where most Americans have an issue with that, as we saw in the case of Gus Walz. The Kamala Harris's campaign, obviously denounced and called out Donald Trump and his surrogates on their statements for Gus Walz, and similarly, there were a lot of Republicans who called out the Kamala Harris campaigns and surrogates for the JD Vance couch issue. We definitely would see same intensity when it comes to some of these memes and some of these out of context comments, and some may even say bullying. So we'll probably see all of that as the campaign goes and it gets down to its final stretch. But is it fair? Well, I do not know. We can't speak for everybody here. But one thing is for sure, that people do take notice of how low one campaign is going versus the other.
Global pop icon Taylor Swift is yet to endorse a presidential candidate in this election, yet her fervent fan base is already mobilizing support for one. The Swifties for Kamala Coalition officially launched a virtual rally that included a lineup of guest speakers like Carole King and Senator Elizabeth Warren. Now, this virtual rally has raised almost about $140,000 for the Harris campaign, and according to reports, about 26,000 Swifties joined the Zoom call on Tuesday. However, you should know that Taylor Swift has no affiliation with this group, and nor was she present in the virtual call. In fact, she is yet to comment on the 2024 election. Although, Swift did ultimately back the Biden-Harris campaign in the previous election in 2020. So now, with all the speculations doing rounds on social media, can Taylor Swift directly endorse Kamala Harris? Well, political commentators are wondering if the singer will get behind the candidate for president this year or not, given that she did endorse Biden-Harris in 2020. And there has been no definitive statement from Taylor Swift regarding an endorsement of Kamala Harris as of now. However, speculation arises from her general alignment with Democratic values and her previous support for the Democratic candidate. The buzz surrounding a possible endorsement has been fueled by her continued advocacy for causes which are typically supported by the Democratic Party. For instance, Swift has been a vocal advocate of LGBTQ rights, women's rights, and racial justice. Now, these values closely align with Harris's platform and record. Moreover, Swift has a strong following among a younger demographics, a group that the Democratic Party aims to mobilize in this election. So given her previous endorsements and political activism, endorsing Harris would be a logical continuation of her political journey. Although Swift might want to avoid a direct endorsement to prevent alienating parts of her fan base which actually support Republicans. So she may continue to emphasize on the importance of voting and civic engagement without tying it to a specific candidate. Or the most cunning strategy for Swift would be to subtly support Harris through social media posts or other forms of activism that align with Harris's campaign goals without issuing any formal endorsement. So while it remains uncertain whether Swift will endorse Harris or not, it is likely that she will continue her activism in ways that promote voter engagement and the issue she cares about. So next up, we have an interesting story lined up for you. Keeping a track of Donald Trump's presidential campaigns can be an entertaining pastime. Amid the fake news, lewd remarks, and the dystopian portrayal of America in danger, we often overlook one thing: his dancing. Well, at many campaign stops, the former president engages in what has become his signature dance move. But do you know his dance can actually cost him millions? My colleague Shashank Bhattu decodes this for you.
US elections are just around the corner, and there is no politics without a little drama. In the wild world of US politics, many things would surprise you. But would you believe us when we say that Donald Trump's signature dances at his rallies could actually cost his party millions? Trump's rallies are not just about speeches, they're about turning political events into major dramas. Trump is a serial offender when it comes to drama, but this time he's tangling with the world's most famous singers. Trump and his Republican Party are being slammed for using popular songs by singers without their permission, and he faces damaging and costly multi-million-dollar lawsuits for that. Take Isaac Hayes' estate, for example. His song Hold On I'm Coming from the 1960s has been a Trump rally favorite, but his son is furious and is demanding $3 million from the Trump campaign for using the song without permission. Then we have Johnny Marr from the Smiths. Please, Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want, which is a popular track of his, showed up at a Trump rally in South Dakota. Marr was shocked and he quickly shut down the Trump campaign's use of this song. Next up, we have Sinead O'Connor. Trump used her version of Nothing Compares to You at rallies in Maryland and North Carolina. Her estate said O'Connor would have been disgusted and hurt and demanded that Trump stop using her music. Celine Dion's team also spoke up. My Heart Will Go On appeared at a Montana rally. Dion's team said that this use of their song was unauthorized. Their parting shot? Really? That song. Beyoncé is by far the most famous celebrity involved. Trump used her song Freedom in a campaign clip. Her team slapped a cease and desist on Trump, and the clip was removed fast, but the message was clear. So there you have it, a musical showdown between Trump and big names in music. With artists not backing down, this players' clash is far from over. So will the Republican Party pay the fine, or will Trump be seen in his second most favorite place in the world, the court?
Now time for some quick updates from America's political battleground that you might have missed. First up, reports have emerged that two members of Donald Trump's campaign staff had a verbal and physical altercation with an official at Arlington National Cemetery. So the former president participated in a wreath-laying ceremony on Monday. And according to reports, cemetery officials tried to prevent Trump staffers from filming and photographing in a section where recent US Army personnel were buried. Now, if you look at it, only cemetery staff members are reportedly authorized to take photographs or film in the area. To give you context, Trump participated in an event to mark the third anniversary of a deadly attack on US troops in Afghanistan in that area. Next up, Trump is embroiled in another controversy after he reposted a crude sexual insult about Kamala Harris on his social media platform Truth Social. Now, in the post, Trump implied that Harris's political career began in a bedroom. Trump reposted an image of the ex-post containing a pattern of making or amplifying vulgar comments about his political opponents. Now, the remark has drawn sharp criticism for its explicit nature and the implication it carries about Harris's career achievements. At last, Republicans' vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance has criticized Kamala Harris and Joe Biden for their handling of US troops withdrawal from Afghanistan. So, while talking to reporters, Vance said that Harris can go to hell when he was asked about US withdrawal from Afghanistan. Vance took cheap shots at the Democratic Party and accused it of being asleep during the haphazard withdrawal. Well, that's all we have for you today. See you tomorrow with more updates from US elections.